PI Advice Podcast.
What's going on? This is Andrew with the Pride Investigator Advice Podcast, recording a couple days before Thanksgiving 2013. Welcome to the show. I think I have a very intriguing topic today, and I hope you enjoy it. I probably I've scratched on this topic before, but I thought it was worth bringing it up again because I saw it in the forum, and I was like, and I didn't. The forum kind of took off. People were talking about it and sharing their experiences and how much they pay their people. And I guess I gave away my topic there. But yeah, I didn't really get involved. I just wanted to wait to see what everybody else had to say, and even after then, I only looked today to kind of scroll down the back and forth on the whole topic. But so the topic is what's fair pay? And it actually comes at a good time because I got into this discussion with some friends of mine. Ironically, one of them used to be a private investigator. But the topic wasn't, when I got into the discussion, it was with my liberal friends. And my liberal friends and I, we have different perspectives. We agree on a lot of things, and I don't want to get into political here, but we got into the discussion of what's fair pay. And actually, Walmart came into conversation. Walmart doesn't pay their employees enough, and I don't know. I didn't do that much research on exactly what every Walmart employee was getting paid, but my friends believe that Walmart could do more, which I guess every company could do more, right? But companies have responsibilities. They have responsibilities to the shareholders. They have responsibilities to make a profit. Basically, in my experience, every company is typically pretty stingy, at least when it comes to the grunts, which is, if we're in Walmart terms, the greeter, the stalker. When it comes to private investigations and those big companies, even though the private investigators that are actually doing the work are the ones that are getting the results. We're the ground force. Obviously, we don't make the most. It's usually the guy up top, in those big companies, the directors and the sales force and the presidents. Those guys are the ones that make the money. And of course, the bigger the companies are, sometimes they're a part of a bigger company. Way back when I was with, Omega Insurance Services, and it got bought out by First Advantage. First Advantage made a division of their company called First Advantage Investigative Services. So we were a small piece of a much bigger puzzle, a much bigger team, even though, usually when big broadcast emails went out, it never really impacted us any. So with that in mind, we're going to discuss, that'll be the main topic today. What's fair pay for a private investigator? And I'll try to scratch on, I'm not talking about people who own companies. That's going to be I'm not going to discuss. I'm just going to talk about being an employee to somebody. Okay. But before I get into that, I just want to say, hey, Thanksgiving's in a couple days, and I will be putting this out. Maybe not the video. I don't know. I'll try to get that out before Thanksgiving, but I'll be putting the podcast out before Thanksgiving. So, if you guys are working on Thanksgiving, God bless you. I hope you're getting paid a little extra more that day to work. But we're getting into the slow season, so just keep working hard out there. Whether you're working for somebody or you're working for yourself, just keep just keep doing your best out there, and that's all you can really do sometimes. And I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a great holiday with your family, because especially in this, if you get the opportunity to be home with your family on Thanksgiving, just take advantage. And I'm sure you do. I'm sure this is, I'm just preaching to the choir. So anyways, I also had a question from a reader, and sometimes I get emails sent to different, questions sent to different emails, just the way sometimes they do it through the contact page, and sometimes they just do it to my PI advice email at gmail.com. So the guy asked, he had mentioned that I had mentioned working for vendors in the past, working as a vendor. And if you guys are familiar with this term, vending is basically you have your own business and you do contract work for other companies because they don't have the coverage necessarily. So I might do work for a company in Michigan, and I have a certain rate that I've contracted with them with, and they can get rid of me at any time. They don't have to use me ever, and they just basically there's no taxes. They just pay me a straight wage or whatever their contractor rate is, and they don't have to worry about work comp, if they fire me, or benefits or anything. They don't have to worry about anything. They just pay me. I have to worry about my own taxes when it comes to that. So in a nutshell, that's being a vendor. That's being or doing vendor work and doing those kind of gigs. So he wanted to know, look, he's like, you had recommended going to forums and finding some vendor gigs there. Now, I think I was very fortunate when I first started doing vending and doing these contract gigs, because at the time I really needed the work, and I just had subscribed to a bunch of different forums on Yahoo, all private investigator related. Some of these forums are strictly for companies to go, hey, I need an investigator in such and such. Please send me your rate, your mileage, whatever your experience or whatever you have, right? How much you get a charge for your time and whatnot. So right at that time, when work was super slow and I was kind of scared, all of a sudden there was like 3 different companies that were looking for, maybe it was less than that, maybe it was 2, looking for vendors. And I said, I sent them my stuff. I go, look, here's my experience. Here I go. Here's my proof of insurance. Yada yada. And some of them actually called me because they just wanted to talk to me. Some of them waited like a day, and they just kind of did their little checks on me, like maybe asked around or checked my LinkedIn account to see my experience or whatever the case was. Anyways. And so it really worked out for me. But, I think I saw that about 3 or 4 times, and this was about a year ago. And I'll be honest with you, recently, nobody's asking for any vendors in Washington, and I still have great relationships with the people I've done work for. And so, it's kind of worked out for me. And then also there's been word of mouth. Some companies say, no, I've got a guy I use in Washington. You might want to use him. And I've gotten work that way. So here's what I would do. You're going to see people say all the time. You're going to see it. It's never. It's going to be, I need an investigator. Such and such company. I need an investigator in such and such town to work this case. Well, they might not be asking for you in your state, but what you can do is, at the very least, reach out to them and say, look, I know you're not looking for an investigator in this town right now, but is there any way I can get on your vendor panel? If you need somebody in the state at some point, how would I go about doing that? And that would be a good way to do it. At least reach out. And there's tons of companies out there doing it, so you have plenty of phone calls to make in regards to that. So that's the first step I would make. And also networking. You can also you can be a vendor for people just in your home state. Just being in your association. Sometimes there's going to be companies in your state that, or just individual investigators that own their own business that just can't cover the work. But they still want to hold on to some of that cash. So they're just going to be like, hey, look, I need another investigator, but I don't want to hire somebody. Like, I don't want them on my payroll. I just want someone to do some contract work for me. So networking and getting people to trust you and being trustworthy. Don't trick them, be someone they can turn to. Is one of the great ways. More than ever, it's all comes down to trust and, making them feel like, you know what you're doing. I got a call probably about 3 weeks ago from a company I never reached out to. They just looked for a private investigator in Tacoma, and I actually tailor my website more to work comp stuff. And the kind of surveillance stuff now more than ever. And he's like, hey, I got a case. Can you do it? Can you pull video with a time shot on it? Yes, I am. I use pin. I'm giving him all these reasons why he should trust me. Like, no, I'm not just telling you I could do it. Here, this is the program that I use. And, then I started asking him some questions like, hey, have you ever had do you vend out a lot? And, do you, look for other, vendors all over the place all the time, or is this some just special case? And it wasn't more for the fact of future work. It was more about, I wanted to know that this guy was going to pay me. I wanted to know, are we going to have a little contract together? What's your policies? I mean, how are you just a fly-by-night company? Let me check you out too. I don't want to do 3 days of work and not get paid. So, and which brings me into another story. I did work for a company. I still do. I still work for the company, but there was a manager that was in charge of the vending that left the company, and she went to a different company. And out of the blue, she says, "Hey, remember me? I used to work for such and such company. I have a case in wherever it was." And they said, "Hey, can you do it? Are you still charging X amount rate?" I go, "Yeah, that's my rate." And I didn't hear from her again. And then all of a sudden I get a case in my email, like, here's the case. I'm like, whoa, I don't have a vendor agreement. You're not telling me how much, there's no proof of this. There's no contractual agreement here. Literally, you sent me an email saying, how much do you charge? And here's the case. And so basically that kind of went south. I didn't have very much faith in her, and she kind of just stopped responding to me after some correspondence. And long story short, I didn't work the case, and it was probably better because I didn't have a whole lot of trust in her at that point. So anyways, that's my little vending story. Trust, reach out to those people, those companies that even though they're not asking for someone in your state now, they might be looking for someone to replace somebody or just have another person in the, in the actual lineup of, well, this guy's busy. Let me go to this guy. This guy's busy. They have, 3 or 4 vendors they might use in a state. So it wouldn't hurt to get on there. And definitely, make sure you provide some good references like, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years, or, hey, I worked for such and such company before I started my own business, and that'll give them some indication that you know what you're doing. And, yeah. And some of the main things you want to make sure you can do is pull video from your camera with a time shot. If you can't do that, then they're going to be mad probably. Okay. When it comes to surveillance, and that just, it's not just about surveillance. It could be about taking statements or taking pictures. It could be anything, in particular. I've always got that insurance company kind of mindset, or insurance industry surveillance, mindset. So that is that. Let's go on to the main topic here. I've got to fit this in probably about 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to try to do as best I can. I'll probably write something on this, with some more thought. Sometimes it's hard to think on the fly, even though I have, a ton of notes here. It doesn't matter. I always seem to forget something. So, what is fair pay for an investigator? Now, if you've heard me talk about this before, I kind of already told you my thoughts in general of what's fair pay, in regards to a company. And my general thoughts are nobody's making you work for a company. If I was to use Walmart as an example, if they're not paying you enough at Walmart, then take the experience you have at Walmart and go find another job. Go find someone that appreciates your skills more. And the same thing would go with private investigation. Just as just a general statement, like if you started off at a wage in the company you're working for, and you were unhappy with it, you might want to, take the skills that you have built and go and sell them down the road to some other company that's going to appreciate those skills more, and show you that appreciation, via your pocketbook. But I'm not saying be a job jumper, because that'll also get you. Because if you come to me and I'm hiring somebody and you say, well, I've worked for this company, this company, this company, this company, you show me 7 companies in 2 years. I would think it'd be less about looking for more pay and more about you just can't stay with anybody or they're firing you. I'm not sure what's happening, but don't be a job jumper. Show some stability. Show some. I've never heard anybody go to me, yeah, wow, you stay with that company for 5 years. You must be unreliable. but I have friends that have job jumped quite a bit, and now they can't even get a job. I mean, they could do the job, but the companies can't depend on them, and now they struggle getting hired badly, even with all the connections in the world. They have a hard time now. So here's some of the considerations that not only you should think about, but I'm sure companies are thinking about as well. And I was a manager for a short period of time way back when. This is kind of some of the stuff that the company that I worked for thought about. So location. Some states cost less to live in than other states. For instance, I know that one company that I worked with, they paid a lot in California and they paid a lot in New York, but maybe they paid a little less in Texas, or I'm trying to think of another one that's relatively less expensive to live in. Maybe Idaho, but that's probably changed a little bit now. Everybody from Idaho's going, wait a minute, it's heck of expensive out here. Okay. I think you get the hint. Some states are, the house price is a good, thing to point at when you think of cost of living. I know Texas was extremely less expensive to live in when I lived there than it was to live in California was from originally. So just something to think about. So employers are gonna, try to compensate you maybe a little bit better, hourly wage wise. California, like I said, and New York in particular, it's very expensive to live there. I mean, probably more expensive. It is probably more expensive than California. So gas compensation. When you're doing surveillance or you're doing, and mind you, this whole pretense of the subject I'm talking about is you working for somebody. You're going to be an employee. So another thing to think about, what's fair pay, right? So under this whole topic is, gas compensation. Are they paying for your gas? Are they giving you a gas card for your gas for work? Or are they paying you mileage? Now, I don't even know what a fair rate is these days, but you can count on this. If they're paying you, they're probably charging their client whatever the federal rate is. So if it's 56 cents a mile, they're probably charging their client that. But they're not going to give you 56 cents a mile in most cases. They're probably going to give you 35 or 45. They're going to take a little off the top, and that's just to cover just a little pad their bottom line. It's normal. When I was a painter, I was making $8 an hour, but when they came up with the bid for the job, they were charging me as if I was $18 an hour. You know what I mean? They're adding more to the top because that's how my boss got paid. And that will always be that way in most cases. I mean, you might find somebody that's like, I'm just going to pay you what they're paying me. That's going to happen. But for people to stay in business and for their bosses to make good money, that's what they end up doing. So, I've seen if you can get 30, 35 cents, 40 cents a mile, that I think probably pretty good. If you get something better than that, more power to you. But mainly you want to pay for your gas for all the traveling you do. Back in the day, I think I was getting like 35 cents a mile. I could be wrong, but it was about 35 cents, 38 cents or something like that. And every 2 weeks I was getting like $500. Mind you, I was driving so much, but I was getting $500 and I felt like it was like a bonus, but really I was just paying for my gas. That's all I was doing. I might have made like maybe $150 or $200 off that $500, but in reality, I still was there was wear and tear on my vehicle. I was replacing tires throughout the year. I was doing oil changes, so it all goes somewhere. So if you do get compensated with mileage, I would not consider that your income. It's really, a lot of people make that mistake, and when they use it as like, oh, I make an extra $1,000 a month just to mileage. Well, when work slows down or the cases are closer to you, that mileage is going to drop. That mileage, is going to drop dramatically, and you won't be making that much. But keep that in consideration. When we talk about this fair pay for investigators, when you get hired, are you getting a per diem for food, and how much is it? I've seen basically, I think it's $20 or $25 a day for investigators that travel. Do I think that's fair? No, I do not think that's fair. But that seems to be the norm. And if you get something better, more power to you. I have friends that are, in fact, even my father, who, when he goes and travels for work, he gets like $60, $70 a day. that has not happened in this field, at least is in my experience. So find out what that is when you are negotiating your salary. What do I think is fair? I would think, maybe $30 a day for food is fair. But you might not get that. And some companies are like, we will only pay you back up to $25. But even then, we still want to see every receipt. So you can't. They're just stingy sometimes, and I don't agree with it. But that's just how it is. So they'll want to see receipts, and so they're not going to pay you, even though the limit is $25 a day. If you only spent $15 a day to try to, maybe have some extra money in your pocket, they're only going to pay you back to as much as you spent. So if you lost a receipt, they wouldn't pay. Like if I lost my receipt, I wouldn't get paid for it. Yeah, was it unfair? Absolutely. It was just kind of just one of those things where you just want to slap somebody. But anyways, so hotel compensation. When you have to travel, you get put up in a hotel. Sometimes the companies just go, hey, tell me where you want to stay, or we'll set you up with a hotel, and they just take care of everything. And all you do is have to show up and check in. I've worked for companies who've done that, and I've worked for companies who have given you a company credit card and said, okay, well, $65 is your limit a day, so don't go over that. And you will find in some areas that $65 a day won't get you more than Motel 6. And that's not really the way you want to ride when you're away from your family already. You don't want to be in some crappy hotel. It gets 6 channels and it's a nasty bed and nasty shower. You don't want that. But I mean, would I consider that, what is fair pay? I mean, that's just something to think about just in general when you're working for a company. So wear and tear on your car. I've worked for a company where they pay me, well, they actually take care of my gas. They give me a gas card. And then they would also, depending on how many hours I worked, they would also give me some compensation for my vehicle wear and tear. So that which might add up to like a little over $200 a month, depending on how many hours I worked. So that's always good. Consider that. That'll all be considered into your compensation as a private investigator, right? When you're working for somebody. Perks. Another thing that people don't really think about sometimes when it comes to compensation, right? Sometimes it's just all about the hourly wage, but a lot of people are just getting into this industry, working for somebody. They don't have the equipment. So sometimes the companies will go, okay, we'll either give you $25 a month for use of your cell phones, to take company calls, from their supervisor or clients or whatever. They'll give you equipment sometimes. They'll give you a laptop. They'll give you the camera. Sometimes, like I said, they'll even give you a phone. They won't even just pay for your phone. They'll actually give you a phone and they'll pay for it. And that won't be taking anything out of your pocket or anything. And sometimes they'll even train you. So take that in consideration when it comes to compensation, because all this training and work experience that you get is going to lead to somewhere down the road. Maybe not right then, but you need to think about that in your long-term scheme of things when you talk about what's fair compensation. Travel time is always a big one. I can travel up to 5 hours to a case. Which sucks, right? But some companies will pay. Well, there was a company that at one time that I worked for paid my hourly rate for the time that I traveled, and they would pay. I think it was like an hour after I left. So if I had a 5-hour drive, I would get paid for 4 of those hours. The first hour they weren't gonna give me any money for. And then there was a time where they would only pay me minimum wage because they said, well, we can't give you full time because we're not charging anybody for this. The client, we're billing our client a flat rate, and we need to compensate for the time that, we can't pay you $100 to drive there, but we'll pay you minimum wage. And I remember getting pretty huffy puffy about that at the time because I'm like, what? So my time's worth less if I'm just driving? Or, no, my time is still my time. That was my big thing. But, that's just how it goes sometimes. You got to take that less rate for travel. But, as long as your gas is getting paid for and stuff like that, sometimes we're just like, hey, I don't care where the travel is. Just let me get to the case. Let me make the real money there, which I don't know. The travel time is always an iffy subject, but you need to think about that when you think of compensation, how much you're getting paid for. Mileage rate, like the federal rate, I just looked up in 2002 or 2012 or 2013, I can't remember which one. It was 56.5 cents a mile. That was the I was on the IRS website or whatever. I typically see as an employee 35 cents, a little over 40 cents a mile for compensation with travel. If you got that, I mean, you might say, well, that's drastically different than the IRS. But remember what I told you, they're taking a little bit off the top. Not only are they taking off with, what they charge a day. Obviously, if the company is paying you $18 an hour, they're probably charging their client $60 an hour. And they know, yeah, you're like, well, that's $42 difference. Well, yeah, it is. But remember, they got to pay your manager. You got to pay the sales guy. They got to, make a profit. Who knows if there's stockholders involved and, all that kind of good stuff. And they got to pay for their office building and all that kind of stuff. So, they're going to pay what the market's worth. And typically, entry level, it could range, but we'll get into that too. So, what rate should you start at? And again, it could vary from where you're at and, where you live and all that kind of stuff. I think I saw it was either $12 or $14 an hour starting for some private investigation company about a year ago. I saw that. They gave you training. I think they gave you equipment. But is that fair pay? Well, first of all, I don't know that if you're looking for a job and you need a job and you're willing to work for it, then if you want to go work for that company making $12 an hour, then it's your choice. There's nothing wrong with that. You're choosing to work for them, and if you don't work for them, they're going to find somebody else. It's just how it is. But I would look at it like this. If a company is hiring at $12 an hour, and they're going to train you, and they're going to give you equipment, and they're going to get you on your feet, and you're going to get you learning how to be a private investigator, learn how to do surveillance property, maybe learn how to take statements and scene investigations, and who knows, home, mortgage fraud and whatever else is out there, or taking statements, or maybe they're doing death investigations. Take that out into the market on your own. I mean, my goodness, how much could you charge for that on your own? But they don't just typically give out that information. And if you do, maybe you're going to a special class you're spending $1,000 for, or you can learn from them and get paid to learn from them. Maybe it's not what you thought it should be, but at least you're getting paid and you're getting trained. That's the long-term, that's the long-term goal. You're not going to be rich working for somebody. It's just not going to happen. So you need to get past that now. You're not going to no one's going to pay you $60 an hour. You're not that important. They can pull a guy off the street and get him to point a video camera at a house and pay him $10 an hour. Okay. So get past the getting rich and what's fair. When I was looking on the forums, I was actually kind of surprised. And I didn't research every person that was responding or their company, but I saw a guy was like, hey, I started off at $8 an hour in 1989. And maybe he made some 22 cents a mile or something like that. And he's like, I didn't say a word. Man, I did that all the time, and I traveled 4 hours a day, and I just did it. And I was a business owner, and so he's not complaining now because now he's reaping his rewards now. I saw other people that said, I pay my people $25 to $35 an hour. You know what? That's great. I think that's very awesome. I mean, I don't know what he's charging his client. He must be charging his client $100 an hour or $75 an hour. He's making money. Don't get me wrong, but he also didn't each of these people that said they pay their people between that, $25 and $35 an hour. They didn't tell you how much experience the person came in with, were they just starting that way, or is it, performance based or anything like that? It's kind of a blanket statement. If you were to find an investigation job making at least $25 an hour, I applaud you. I really do, because those are few and far between. And usually people have to work a very long time working for somebody to make that. I remember when I worked for a smaller company, it was kind of half family based and half all the people he liked, the owner, private company. And I'm trying to remember how much he started me off at. I want to say it was like $16 an hour. But I had a conversation. I'm like, look, I'm worth this much. And I know that. And I know I could do a lot. He goes, I'll tell you what, after a couple of months, if you do a good job, I'll bump your salary up to 17 something. Well, 2 or 3 months went by and I was kicking butt, but he magically forgot about that. And I never made that 17 something back. And he never bumped me up. And in fact, most of the people he did pay was about 16 bucks an hour, but he also paid mileage. And he never paid he was never going to pay anybody more than that. And the people that I think he ended up doing like years later, paying more than that, were family. So, I mean, if he was literally pulling people that had no experience in there doing surveillance and paying them 15 bucks an hour, 14 bucks an hour. And I think a lot of those people are still there. Some of them left, some of them went on to do other things, but he could do it. And if you didn't want to do it for that cost, then he'd just go hire somebody else. Didn't matter to him. And he did provide a video camera. And with the people that he trusted, he provided company cars, but he was a pretty shrewd businessman in the sense that he didn't care about you. He just cared about the bottom line, how much money he was going to make and keeping his clients bottom line. So, what else here? What other knowledge can I spill for a second here? We can talk about vendor rates for a second. So, I know I tried to do my best to answer that question regarding vendor rates for gentlemen that asked me that question. What can you expect to make as a vendor? So you start your own business and maybe business isn't going that well. And you're like, well, I need to maybe do some contract work to kind of keep the cash flow coming in. I have seen vendor rates between, and it's probably maybe even a little lower than this, but I've seen them between 30 and 60 bucks an hour. I'll be honest with you. I've never made the 60 bucks an hour. It hasn't happened. Most of the vendors rates that I've encountered, like in regarding talking to other companies when it came down to how much was I going to charge, they wanted it all in one. So they didn't want to pay for mileage. They just wanted to be like, you give me a rate that it's all inclusive. Like I send you 2 hours away. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to pay you the same rate an hour. Case time only, no travel. Just give me the rate. And so, I like I said, I've never seen 60. I've done 30. I've done 30 because it kept me afloat and they gave me a lot of work. And so maybe when it was all said and done, I probably wasn't making over maybe a little over 20 bucks an hour when it came to expenses like this. I mean, this is no mileage, no nothing, but I did it. I had to do it for a little while. And eventually I got that rate bumped up because there was a point where I couldn't do it anymore. Like I felt like they were taking advantage of me, and I was still learning about vending, like not in regards to like the work, but what was a fair rate. And once I felt like 30 was a little low, considering the amount of work I did for them and the quality of it, I was like, yeah, that's going to have to change a little bit. So between I would personally not work for anything less than 35 an hour. 35 to, if you can get 60, you're awesome. Great. What I would say is that, and also, sometimes you can get mileage. Sometimes when they do vending, like, okay, well, they already have a rate in mind. Some people were like, okay, we'll pay you 45 bucks an hour plus 45 cents a mile for this case, So sometimes you might want to listen to what they have to say when you're negotiating. Let's say, what do you typically pay? And then you can go from there. Bigger companies tend to be able to pay a higher number. So if it's a company like G4S, probably one of the largest, investigative companies out there, they might give you 60 bucks an hour. But the hard part is with G4S is to get on the vendor panel. That's the hard thing. So with the smaller companies, you're going to see more vending rates around $45, $50 an hour. All inclusive. You might not see the whole mileage thing. Let's see here. Yeah. That's basically that. So, and they want a lot from you, by the way. They're gonna want the report. Well, not everybody, but a lot of them will say they want the note, the report, and the video all submitted to them that night. And obviously that can't always happen, but in most cases they're requiring that. And you just want to be able to do that for them. And that might take, writing reports in the car or whatever. And again, this is, everything changes a little bit. Like I'm like referring to surveillance, but if you're doing statements and things like that, that might not apply. But I'm referring to like surveillance vendor rates when I'm talking about this stuff. So, and I've talked about this before. What's a fair pay? Well, I don't think there's any such thing. There's what you are willing to work for and why you're willing to work for it. So if you're willing to get in there at $14 an hour and learn all this stuff and then go to a different companies willing to pay you more, I would do that. Give them a year, just pay your dues, learn the trade, and then start asking for more down the road, either from that company or from another company. They're going to be willing to pay it. But yeah, there's no one that's owed a certain salary. Like, if you got 10 years experience, let's say I think I just hit my actual 10-year mark in October, right? Like just doing this type of stuff over and over again, investigative stuff. If no one's willing to pay me my wage, then I can't demand it, or I'm not going to have any money. Like I won't be working. So if the going rate for what I do is $20 an hour at that time, well, then I'm going to have to take $20 an hour. Otherwise I'm going to be starving. Right. So, if I started off my career at $15.50 an hour. I didn't have any health insurance because I knew that was going to take from my bottom line. And my wife worked for a company that would have gotten better medical anyways. I want to say I got like 35 cents a mile, which I told you many times it came out to be like $500 a month. This company also did bonuses, which was an incentive bonus. The better I did, the better bonus I got at the end of the month. And that went on for about a year until they realized it was unsustainable, which I've talked about before. But, whenever you're working for somebody, this is just the main thing to think of. They want to make money. And, you might work for a great boss who really takes care of you financially, but more times than not, they're in business to stay in business. And, the company you work for is usually going to get the bigger chunk of whatever's coming in. And so I hope that gives you guys some kind of perspective. Take the knowledge, even if it's at $14 an hour, and then make it into something better down the road. Nobody owns us a salary. Nobody owns us anything. We're not entitled to it. If the investigative industry goes poo-poo, well, then we're going to I'm going to have to adapt and find something else. Find a different career line or adapt it in a different way. That's just how it is, so I hope that kind of helps you guys a little bit. If you're looking to get some knowledge on stuff, you can always go to Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/PI Advice podcast, and you can get your free book. They've got bajillions of titles, and all kinds of good stuff. I recommend. Let's see here. Here's a good one. Crush It. It's time to cash in on your passion, but. I think I told you guys before, I think I got into about a quarter of this book, and then I was like, I ended up moving on for some reason, but I'm going to have to get this on Audible myself so I can finish it. But Gary Vaynerchuk, very smart, intelligent guy, very passionate. If you ever watch him on YouTube, very passionate. Yeah. And what else, guys? By the way, I want to thank you guys you guys are so awesome. Every time I mention it on the podcast, I feel like you guys like instantly respond. You guys are freaking awesome. I've been getting ideas from other people on some possible topics, and I'm going to either write about, usually I do both. I write and talk about it, but thank you so much. It keeps me inspired to get back on here and do another podcast more frequently. And, with time allowing, I'm on here doing it. So I do have some in the hopper. There was one that's a kind of a technical podcast and maybe blog post to come up. So I'll try to do that soon. But without further ado, hey, thank you guys for listening. Have a great Thanksgiving. And I will probably be on the mic soon. Also, don't forget about investigatormarketing.com. I almost forgot. They have a deal. Buy a 5 to 10 page website and get the SEO free search engine optimization. That's a $250 value. definitely worth considering if you've been kind of humming and hawing about like, oh, website, I don't know, I don't need one. Oh, I do need one. Think about it. Go over to investigatormarketing.com. Tell Ruben Andrew sent you from the Private Investigator Advice podcast, Private Investigator Advice website, whatever. Tell him I sent you, and he'll get you good with that deal. The deal only lasts to the end of December 2013. After that, we'll have a different promotion for you, but it's good until then. So, that's a pretty huge value when you think about it in regards to having a website built. At the very least, give Ruben a call. Say, look, Andrew sent me. I just want to hear what you can do for me. I don't know if I'm ready to buy yet, but tell me why. Tell me why, and he'll tell you. You want phone calls? He'll tell you. He'll tell you how to get that. Okay. So, all right, guys. I am done for now, and I will talk to you again soon. Take it easy.